Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is Debbie with Light Up Your Worth, and I'm here for one of my friends that I cannot wait to introduce you to. Bobbie Jo and I are, those type of people that you meet in a community, and there's just something about their magical energy that is so inviting and warm and cuddly. It's almost like that cup of hot chocolate when it's cold outside and you just want to hold the cup because the warmth is just drawing you to it. And so Bobbie Jo and I met in an online community of some of our spiritual mentors. And so it was just that type of connection. She's a hot chocolate and in this cup that I wanted to be near and get to know more. And so I've invited her to come on, and I'm so excited that you're here, Bobbie Jo. Welcome.
Thank you. No, I was thinking warm hug, and then you were like this warm cup of hot chocolate, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so perfect. Like, because there's a sweetness to the hot chocolate. Like you do a hug, but then you have that cup of hot chocolate and you take that first sip and you're always like, oh, this is so good. It's so warm. There's something else that follows the hot. So it's even better, I think, than a warm hug. Like for your analogy, I loved it. Thank you.
Like it's the warms around your physical, and then when you're bringing it in, it's the sweet, and then it goes all the way and tingles through you.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, love it. So glad you're here. So I'm going to kick us off and want to find out. I'm really highlighting all these amazing women that I've come across in our spiritual communities. And as we give back and shine our light, that light shining comes from life experiences. And so I would love to hear how you arrived here, what started you on this journey, and what have you overcome. And so feel free to share at what level you feel comfortable with. And I just can't wait. I just love the resilience that I know that you already have. So there you go.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I know that's such a nice intro. Okay, so I like the way you said with the level of comfort, right? Because one of the things I'm working on is really being comfortable at sharing my story more, at being more visible, especially because of the space that I kind of I'm starting from. There's a really big need. And so I had joined 9/11 happened, which everyone's familiar with 9/11, unfortunately. That happened. And I literally was in the recruiting office like a day or two later. I'm watching CNN, tears falling. Everyone's like, I can't find my family. And it fired something in me. My Sagittarius came out. And I was like, what's going on? Like, I have to help. I have to be of service. And so I joined the Navy, and I'm still the only female in my family to have joined the military, but my paternal side is actually uncle, my dad, my grandfather, everybody, Air Force and Navy, right? And so I kept hearing this, join the military, do this. And I was like, no. So I did. And I will say, for the most part, it was amazing. Like I never thought, being in foster care, I never thought I'd travel the world. I lived overseas for 3 years in the Middle East, Crete, the island of Crete, and in Italy and I did different tours there. And I say this because when I go into my trauma story, sometimes it tends to cloud my military service story, because I did do 6 years in, and I have some of my best friends to this day. I served with. I just talked to one of my best friends now that her and I did 3 different duty stations together. Was at boot camp at the same time. Didn't even realize that until we went to A school together. And like we'll be friends forever, right? She's amazing. But I did experience what I call my first major trauma, and now they're calling it MST, which is military sexual trauma. And I don't normally, go into the details. I'm not going to trigger myself or anyone else. And at this point, I realized that the details aren't what's important in the hero's journey that I'm in now, or in my healing journey at this level. It's more of like the story of this trauma happening, me not feeling supported, me using terrible coping skills of drinking, no one hearing, not feeling heard. He was up against other charges for other women that he had assaulted on the same base, no less. People were coming forward and sharing with me. He did this to me when I first got here. He did, it was like, oh my gosh, this guy's so good at, get it kind of thing, right? Like I'm going to tell my story and he's going to be stopped. And then that didn't happen. And he's still, to my knowledge, the last I heard, he was still serving in the military. But I remember that moment where we had a female CEO and she called me to the office to give me the news. And I remember like the tears that she had. And now I reflect on it and I'm like, her being a female CEO on our base and seeing what was going on and not having the power to do anything about it because the trial was being held I was in Italy at the time, and the trial was being held in Naples, and we were stationed in Gaeta, Italy, a beautiful, beautiful place if anyone ever goes there. But I just remember I just remember feeling like just that mutual loss or that disempowerment, like she couldn't do anything either. And she just knew I was being wronged. She knew all the other women were being wronged. And it's just that same, kind of story that then this was back in 2004, I think, when this was going on. And so we've actually come a long way now, but from then till now, there has been, more women have been more outspoken about this space, the assaults, and more political people are being called out, and men and women are both coming forward on people that are mentors and coaches and that sort of thing, right? So I think this is really powerful, the time we're in now, as opposed to what it was when it was still military, especially very secret, very just kind of like keep her quiet, moves her along. So anyway, so I learned to hide it, right? I learned to be quiet. They asked me to re-enlist. All my friends were like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, they said they'd give me San Diego. I'll just go there and start fresh, right? Nobody will know what happened. I don't have to tell anyone. It won't be embarrassing. Like, I'm going to start over. And unfortunately, it ended up, I was an instructor in San Diego. I had 2 amazing years still in the military there, but it did follow me, and I got out before I thought I would. So that was another trauma that happened because of this major trauma. Now I'm being traumatized again. And in my mind, by the same person, right? The same perpetrator. I'm being traumatized again because I wasn't supported. I wasn't heard. I was like, what is going on? And I knew there was that phrase, oh, everything happens for a reason, that your friends like to say to support you at the time, right? Because I wasn't as spiritual as I am now. Or intentionally spiritual, I guess I should say. But there was a sense of like, okay, well, we're done with the military. Like, I just knew it was my 6th year. I always had these 6-year cycles. And I'm like, all right, well, obviously it's been 6 years, like in my mind, I was like, well, it's my cycle, right? Like something new. Like, we're just gonna, we'll make new friends. No one's gonna know still, like nobody knew. So I was hiding for a really long time. And then fast forward to a few years ago, I decided to make a transition, make a change. And I was like, okay, I'm done doing surrogate pregnancies. I'm in social work. It doesn't pay very well. The cost of living in San Diego's gone up. Like, I had, my one daughter was in college. My youngest was still with me. Like, let's just apply at VA hospitals, right? Like, let's apply in places that I would think would be interesting to live and see what happens. And I ended up in Salt Lake and reconnected with someone I knew way before the military. Not about a relationship, amazing. It was like, he had actually ended up serving in the military and I didn't even know. He was divorced now. His kids and I and my kids, like, we all meshed, picket fence, everybody was excited. And then I always say I was sitting at the VA hospital there, and I saw a sign that said, if you've experienced MST, the military sexual trauma, to call this number, you can get help. And I remember, like, even this day, like, I just did that laugh. Like, I remember just sitting there going, like, now, like, really, like, you're gonna help now, like, and it was like this me just kind of yelling at the military, like, why didn't you help me back then? Like what is this? And then there was a part of me, you know, I had gone to an intuitive school in San Diego. I'd gone to an esoteric community for a while. So I had opened up that spiritual door. I was listening to a lot of Abraham Hicks, and I literally was like, what is it? Like, here's your sign, right? Okay, we're gonna get healing done. I found the perfect man. We have our beautiful children. You know what I mean? Like, this is the time. Like, let's get this healing done so I can be whole. Like, I can be whole for my family, for the whole family unit that was forming. And I was like, all right, let's go. So I go to the PTSD clinic. I start the I don't know, you call it treatment therapy, I guess. They were getting me ready to get connected to benefits, in order for me, because with your when you get connected to the benefits, the disability rate goes up, and you can get more healthcare. You can get like, you can get treated for PTSD, right? All of that's taken care of by the VA. So they were helping me with that. And then the red flags happened. And then my picket fence relationship, you know, even now, like, I get a little emotional because it just blew up, and it wasn't, the smoke and mirrors were gone, right? Like, now I had committed to moving, and I was in that same home as him. And I didn't realize, you know, he's the only person I knew when I'd moved there. But I didn't realize how isolated he really kept us because of his own trauma, his own mental illness. And it's not that I'm opposed to having a partner with mental illness, but his is very severe and very narcissistic. And when he wasn't doing the things that he needed to care for himself, he wasn't doing these things. And it was displayed horribly for me and my daughter. And it ended up getting physical on me personally, my daughter, on the home. I had found a little place for my daughter and I to move out because I was like, I cannot live with him right now. Like, this is insane. And, you know, there was the pleading, the crying. It was a literally, anyone who's been in a relationship with a borderline personality narcissist, and I don't mean that really to anyone who's dealing with this. I am very empathetic. However, he got so violent and just wouldn't get help. He'd go through the cycles of crying and go through the cycles of asking, you're a social worker, no one's ever loved me before, you're a veteran, like, you know how to get me help. And I did all the things. I connected him to all the resources, and I was still living in this hell. And none of my friends knew. Once again, what did I do? I've experienced a trauma, and what was my old, be quiet, go into hiding. That's what I had done before. So that's what I did this time. And I mean, now I can see it, right? Like, I can see it's so crazy now. It just all unfolds. Like, if I'm watching, you know, a Lifetime movie, or if I'm telling a story, if it's like this documentary of someone else's life. And it's interesting to me now that this was my life and how these traumas unfolded. And I ended up finding out I'm pregnant, and generational trauma we were just talking about before we went live, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember, you know, as a social worker, you learn all these things, right? Like, I'm in this field that this literally telling you, you know, our clients are going through this, or how child development works, and you learn about all the, you know, Carl Jung and everybody who talks about these things. Like, this baby growing inside me now, not just my daughter was 6 at the time, but my baby is literally developing in trauma. Like, my body was having constant panic attacks and anxiety attacks. I was checking all the windows. Anytime my daughter saw a certain color car, she would, you know, like, is it him? Is he following us? Like, she was carrying a stuffy to school, her therapy dog. Like, she had this stuffy dog that was a German Shepherd. It was her therapy dog. And thankfully they allowed her to take it. I had her in therapy. But we were like really in this trauma state. And I remember thinking, like, I cannot bring another life into the world like this. And, you know, I found out it was a boy. I have a son now. But at the time I was just like, you know, I have this baby growing inside me. And it was like compounding the trauma that he was going to be developing in this in the state, and that my 6-year-old was experiencing this too. First time she's ever experienced someone treating her like this, or this kind of behavior, or seeing her mom, too afraid to leave the house. She would literally be like, "Mom, can I stay home and work at home with you?" So this whole thing. So I got to my breaking point. I left work in the middle of work. I left, and I'm literally at the lawn. I worked as a veterans benefit specialist for aging and adult services in Salt Lake County. And I remember, so it's a big, government building, county building. And I go out onto the lawn by the parking lot. So I was probably really visible and didn't even notice it. But that's the state I was in, right? And I'm sobbing, and I'm calling the therapist, and I'm like, "I need you to help me find adoption services. Like, I'm going to have this baby. I can't keep me and my family safe. I don't know what else to do. Like, I can't even get help for my past trauma now because I'm in trauma. I tried doing some group therapy, and I was so angry at what was going on in my life now. And I was just crying all the time. And I, they were trying to put me on meds, and then I couldn't do meds because I was pregnant. It was like, you know what I mean? It's all these things all at once. And I was just like, I'm done. Like, I literally just told the universe, I'm done. Like, obviously I'm not going to hurt my child. I'd been a surrogate 3 times. I did surrogate pregnancies for other families. I had my daughter. I had severe endometriosis, which now I know developed after the assault, right? All of a sudden I just randomly get endometriosis, like severely. So that was my body definitely bearing the trauma, and then, manifesting the chronic illness. And so I'm at this point where I'm just like, I'm done. Like, I'm sorry, but like, I'm spiritual enough to know that like, I'll be non-physical, and I'll be fine, and I'll be in the next life, and I'll find a good place for my kids to grow up. And it's not rational, right? Like, it's not, if anybody who knows me knows that like I just said I was a surrogate 3 times, like, you know what I mean? My daughter was like a baby, my son, like I took in my foster daughter. Like, I am all about my kids are my whole life. For me to be in that kind of state, like I was not, it was the most crisis trauma state I can convey, right? So I left this message from my therapist, and I didn't have a plan necessarily. They always say like, do you have the plan? I didn't really have a plan because I was still pregnant. I was like second, third trimester, maybe the very beginning of my 3rd trimester. And I was just like, I'm done. Like, I need to figure out what I was planning was, to make sure my kids were safe. Right. That's where I was at. And then that morning, the next morning at 5 a.m, I get the call that one of my best friends, who was a Navy SEAL, had taken his life. And he was dealing with PTSD, TBIs from multiple deployments as a Navy SEAL, and had been going through trying to get help. I mean, all the cycles, trying to get help, trying to get into programs, and then he'd be fine for a while. And he was dealing with an ex-wife that was really disruptive. And we, like there's parts where you can be a part of someone's life as they're going through things. And then there's a part where you're going through stuff. So you have to take a step back, even when you don't realize you're taking a step back, because you have to, your own life my life was chaos, right? And I get this call about my friend, and it was like the shock of learning the news, right? And the pain that caused. But it was also that shock. Like, he had 3 children, amazing. My daughter grew up, our kids all grew up together. I remember babysitting his oldest son before I was even pregnant, right? And then we had our girls, we were pregnant at the same time with the girls. Our kids went to school together for a while. I lived with them for the beginning of my 3rd surrogacy. Him and his wife had helped me and my daughter, because, I had to have a place to kind of be supported. But I remember this being shocked, like, all around, but it like shocked me into my healing, right? It shocked me into okay, hold on a second. Like, no, like, I'm not leaving my kids. Like, this is devastating. Look at everybody that's stepping forward. Then of course people were finding out where I was, like, because I wasn't in San Diego. Some people didn't even know I had left San Diego yet, because I wasn't on Facebook or social media. And people were like, what is happening? What's going on? Like, absolutely not, So I knew I had to get away. Like, I had to get if I couldn't be safe where I was at in the city, like, I needed to get out. Right. And I had been asked to, I ended up getting a job offer in Topeka, Kansas at a VA hospital. And I didn't even know if I had gotten the job yet or not. I had $300 in my bank account. And I got some moving services from the victims domestic violence unit there and the area we were at. So they helped pay for the move and stuff. And I loaded my giant pregnant self and my youngest daughter, and we just drove. We just drove from Salt Lake all the way to Topeka, Kansas. And I'm not joking. My phone got turned off. I had no phone. Just the $300 in my bank account. And we stopped at a Denny's. I want to say like the next day of the travel. Because we had stopped because I wanted to take her to, there's a place called Dinosaur Land, which you're hitting Utah and Colorado borderline. And, you know, I'm trying to do something for my daughter. And I'm like, okay, we'll stay the night here. No big deal. And we stop at this Denny's. And I, for some reason, checked my bank account and I had over $5,000 in my bank account. And I was like, what? like literally, like, this is not happening. Like, what is going on, right? And this is one of the first times I'm sharing this part of the story, but I had the benefits that I mentioned the PTSD team was helping me apply for. It took me 3 months just to do the write-up. I had to get all the police reports, all the things that were triggering. I had to write the story, like graphically write to the benefits people, whoever was going to read it. And I had that fear, like, who's going to read this? Like, I'm out of hiding in this small hiding space. I mean, obviously it's not public, right? But to me, it was like, oh my gosh, like, you would have thought I was writing a New York bestseller and everybody was going to read it. It took me 3 months to get this done. I have never, it's very rare the benefits get pushed through so fast. I had just done what's called a compensation. It's your CMP exam. So when you get benefits, you have to go and do a special exam for whatever, with someone who specializes in that area. So I had to go talk to the psych and they do their little thing and they do their stuff and then they send it to the raters, right? I had just done my comp and pen, like, I want to say maybe a week or two before I was like, okay, we're leaving. Like, how fast can we get out of here, right? And we left on a Monday morning because I knew he'd be at work and he wouldn't see us leave during the weekend, right? Because he was stalking. So I'm at this Denny's. I see all this money in my account. Immediately, I turn my phone on, right? And I was like, there's your sign, right? Like the universe has your back. Like, whatever phrase you want, I made, and this is in this state, I can say this now. I can reflect on it and go, and I'm telling anyone who listens to this that needs to hear this, just get out, change, make the commitment, take the leap, and save yourself. You have to do it yourself. At some point, you can have all the support, but you have to do it yourself. I had to say, yes, like, please help me. I had to ask for the support. I had to just go with that $300 in my bank account, hoping that I got this job, hoping I'd figure it out. I was like, literally like, we're going to have to sleep in a moving truck. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know how it was going to all unfold. I just knew I had to go. And I knew, some part of me just knew, like, I just had to trust that it was going to be okay. Right. This disrupt I was talking about earlier in my live stream. So we get to Kansas. We do Dinosaur Land and we do Colorado. It was just a gorgeous, gorgeous trip. And I remember, like, the closer I got to Kansas, I could feel like it's not like it cured me or, you know, the crisis is all gone, but I could just feel myself getting a little bit calmer, feeling a little bit safer. Even my daughter was like, you know, he can't find us. And I'm like, no, look how far we've been driving, you know? So even just reminding her, like, no, we've been driving for days. Like, he can't drive this far, you know, like, I kept just reassuring, and I could see her relaxing more in this journey. And then we got into Kansas. I literally drive into an apartment complex. I had been looking up different places online, and they were like, oh, we don't have anything available here, but we do over here. And it ended up being this beautiful complex in this beautiful neighborhood. And like, the school was amazing. The price was right. We were able to sign the lease that day. We moved in. I got a hotel for the night, and we were able to move in that weekend. Like, all of this literally was like, boom, boom. I had enough money for a deposit and for the first month's rent. I mean, it couldn't have been more perfect. I call Monday morning and I call the VA and I'm like, hey, just checking in. Do you need any more paperwork from us? I'm in town now. And he was like, oh, you moved here? He's like, and this is Labor Day weekend when a week before. And he was like, oh, we were going to have you start on the 5th. And I'm like, well, in my mind, I'm like, well, good thing we moved here. It's like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, that's like in like a week and a half, like just saying, right? But it was after that, the Labor Day weekend. And school was starting, right? Like all these things were just clicking into place. And I started my job. I got us an apartment. We had money to, I was able to get bills turned on. We were able to eat, like anything we had needed. At this point, all my furniture had been sold except the couch. So I bought us beds, and we didn't have a car. My car had gotten repoed and all this, and brand new car, never missed a payment. And like my whole life had been disrupted by this Salt Lake City journey, right? So now fast forward to, I actually had another trauma happen while I was in Topeka, which I won't go into now necessarily, but it was another assault. I started kind of opening up my friend circle, healing some trauma. And it was a situation where it was like, hey, like I was done being pregnant, and I finally was like, okay, I guess I'll go out with some new friends. And they were like, hey, you got to get her home kind of thing. And yeah, sure, no problem. And I had a little bit too much to drink. I mean, I hadn't drank anything in like a year and a half. And which is no excuse, honestly. It doesn't matter if I drink or not, but which I have to remind myself it's that's part of my healing as well. But there was another assault that happened, and it kind of threw me a step back, but it didn't throw me back to where I was, you know what I mean? Like it didn't throw me back to where I was in Salt Lake, because I had seen myself come out of the worst, not once, but twice now, out of 2 major traumas, come out of the worst and reinvent my life. And I was just like, okay. And I found out about this place in Kansas City that was building tiny homes for veterans. And I started volunteering up here. I went and checked it out, and I was like, it wasn't necessarily that they were building the homes. It was the program that is so amazing. And so I started volunteering, and they recruited me to come up. And so I ended up getting out of the move to Topeka move out of Topeka, out of that situation was a lot more seamless. And it was amazing. And I was working at that job for a little while. And then I wasn't. And that was a little bit of a disrupt as well. But through those connections, and through the veteran connections that I have now, I found out about a program called The Battle Within. I noticed I was being kind of short-tempered around myself, around my kids, around people. I was feeling really angry all the time. I was just in that state of like, why did all this trauma happen? Who are all these, why is it always these alpha male military men kind of, stereotypes, right? That are causing like every time, right? In my home, every time, like, why is this happening? Why am I in this trauma loop? Like, I'm a good person. I'm a social worker. I'm, there for my friends. Like I had all these, like, I listen to law of attraction. Like, why would this be my vibration? And I was hugging my children and not feeling love. And I think that's where it was the most, I just knew I needed to get help. I needed to do something different. And so instead of going to the therapy and doing all the things that I've done before that hadn't worked, I went to this Battle Within cohort retreat, whatever you want to call it, PTSD retreat. It's for first responders and veterans. And it was a week long. And it took me to day 4. I did an equine therapy, and the woman, Kelly, she's amazing. She broke me, like in a good way. She was like, no, I was you 2 years ago. Like, you're not going to just walk out of here. You're not just going to say, I'm not going to deal with this. Like, she kicked everybody out. I called the arena because we were literally in an arena with a horse, right? She kicked everybody out, and she sat on the ground, and she was like, if, I invite you to sit down with me, I will. She's like, I don't normally do this, but I'm going to share a little bit of my story. Like, I know what it's like to experience your experience. And I knew, because she's a social worker as well, I knew she wasn't coming at me like, you know, like you hear when people are like, oh, you don't know, you know, you don't know my life. When she was saying it, I, you know, because of my experience and where I come from and my education, my background, I was able to hear her in a different way. I knew that she was telling me that we don't have the exact same trauma, the exact same experience, but she came out of a horrible relationship. She hit rock bottom. She was at that point of like, I know the next life will be better. You know, like it's like that moment of just like Brene Brown, right? Like that empathy. You're just in that hole with somebody and you don't even have to, she just sat down on the ground and she was just like, I'm here when you're ready, right? And I resist. I mean, I'm telling you, like, nicest person in the world. And I was just like, who is this crazy lady? Like, I'm not going to be in here. And there was nothing not to like about her. And the minute she sat down there and she did the real, like, I'm telling you, I needed to hear the real talk. I needed her to come at me in this way, this Brene Brown vulnerable way. And she didn't even have to share her story. She just shared enough for me to know that I could be vulnerable and safe and that she would understand, because that's the space that I really needed at that moment. And that I knew that I could see her now and where she was now. And they always say, like, when you're on a healing journey or when you become a healer, you're always helping people where you're like 2 or 3 years ahead, you know, of something that you experienced. And that's where that real raw connection comes from. And next thing I know, I am hugging this woman. I was literally like, I hadn't let people like touch me or hug me intentionally for years. I'm talking so many years. Even intimate relationships were just always so like uncomfortable for me. And we're literally up, and I have pictures on my social media, standing next to this horse and like leaning on this horse. And I just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. And I like just everything released out of me. And you being a sacred soul alignment practitioner, it's that same feeling of when you really connect into your heart space, right? And you feel that connection again. And it's like, there's nothing like it in the whole world. And you can feel your own love, your own healing. And there's that moment of I'm experiencing it in my heart center with myself. I'm feeling all of me, and I'm being held and supported at the same time, right? Like even if I give up, or even if I feel any of the negative, right? There's someone there that's like, no, I got you. Like, it was so beautiful. And then I turn around. I couldn't believe it. I come out of this in a sense, right? And I turn around and everybody had come back into the barn or into the arena. And they were just there, standing back there, holding space. Everyone that was a part of the program that day, everyone that I was in a cohort with the week, and just tears were just streaming. And they were just like, holy moly, like, how did this woman get Bobbie Jo to hug her? Like, what voodoo is she doing? You know what I mean? Like, what is this? It was so magical. It was just so amazing. And to this day, like, I will be so very thankful. And like I said, you can only save yourself, but you have to allow people to help you and support you and have that vulnerability. That is helping yourself. That is saving yourself. That is healing yourself by walking into those arenas and walking into those spaces. And shortly after that, was in October. And then all of a sudden, I was on Facebook in hiding. I had 100 people that I knew on my friends list, on my personal page, no business, no nothing. And all of a sudden, this woman, Alicia Hartzell, this healer, just pops into my feed, right? Like, I don't know. I honestly don't know I don't know where Siri heard any of this. I don't know where she came from. Cause she's not a veteran, whatever that Facebook is listening to us talk, but she was there. And I was like, I remember doing some of this back in the day, right? Like, I went to an intuitive school for many, many years. Maybe I just opened myself up to my heart center and my spirituality. Absolutely, Alicia's got to come into the space, right? Because she exists, and now she exists in our world, both our worlds. Yeah. And we, now I've gone through her certifications and the different healing that she has opened up my heart space to, and then I had heard about NLP before, but hadn't really dived into it. And another healer came up who does NLP in a spiritual right? She has Reiki and all these other modalities, and the EFT, the emotional freedom techniques, that I really resonated with. And it was like this interesting, I don't know where, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know where they came from either. All of a sudden I'm in this EFT world. And it was just this beautiful synchronicity of the universe is like, thank you for trusting us. Thank you for opening your heart center. Thank you for walking into the arena. Here is all the healing you need. Here are all the people you need. Here are all the resources you need right here, just for you. And here's your time right now to just take that space to heal. And so that's what started my hero's journey, my next hero's journey, right? Because we're always on a new hero's journey, but
right.
That's how I ended up where I'm at now. That was kind of long, I'm sorry, but that's.
So I just want to take a deep breath, and I want to acknowledge what a badass you are.
Thank you.
You're resilient. And how you've come through this with so much grace. And not only have you been through this and have survived, you are thriving. And no wonder I wanted to pick up this hot, drink of cocoa, right? Like hot chocolate, because they're, it's one thing for us to heal ourselves. But now you are not only have done that, and we'll continue to do that, right? We all continue. There's always something that we are all working on. But now you are that light. You are shining your light to others. Oh, I'm getting goosebumps about how powerful and how you are so needed. There's so much trauma.
The MST space is a really interesting space to be in as well, because there's so many, like when I'm talking about being in hiding, like I could be telling the story of thousands of women. Like my story could literally be even women I know in person, right? Who have just hidden their stories or weren't supported, weren't getting any help when they got out, even from the VA, or didn't know how to go for benefits, or didn't know where to go for healing, saw their relationships crumbling, went through all the PTSD, didn't even know they had PTSD, right? That whole experience where you're like, wait, they're calling it MST now, like the military is actually doing something. Like this is a real attitude that a lot of female veterans that still have today. When there's a few documentaries out too about women there, where they kind of are, the documentaries are following women who are going through this journey of trying to get justice, or how they experience the military after this trauma has occurred to them. And it's heart-wrenching, like that they're not, and these are documentaries, these are real stories. And it's interesting, like those that have experienced it, you just feel it so deeply when you're watching it so publicly. And then there's that point of like, these women are doing it so publicly. Like at what point, like, where am I in my journey? Like to inspire others or to help others, like know that you don't have to stay in this hidden state, right? Like there are people that are there to heal, and you don't have to heal publicly. You don't have to tell your story in a live stream or do a podcast, right? But you have to get to that point where you're healing this trauma, because especially with MST, we're literally told to hide it, right? Not to make waves, this patriarch, whatever that happens. And we're done. No, there are so many people that are calling out, they're asking for something. I'm in these other groups, and these women are just posting, and they're like, I just feel so sad. I just want some help. And I'll read these posts, and I will admit, sometimes I can't go into those groups because I'm going through, like another layer of my own healing. And I'm like, okay, I need a break for a second, right? But then I'll go into the groups, and you'll see the posts from the other women that are on the other side of the journey, like I am, that are farther along, and just how much support these women that are feeling so lost, that are just starting on theirs, the support that they're getting, how important it's so important. And I started Bravely Authentic with this, it wasn't just the MST, but a lot of it, I work with the PTSD and the trauma space, but a lot of it has to do with, the assault space and people that have been victimized. And it doesn't necessarily have to be sexual assault. There's, all different kinds of ways to be traumatized, unfortunately. But people who are experiencing trauma from other people and aren't being heard, their voices aren't getting out there, their bodies are burying the trauma, or it's just happened, like we all have things that unexpectedly happen to us. And just being that healer that's like, I will hold space for you. Like, how can I help you? For even people that are further along their healing journey, it doesn't mean that bad things don't happen. We're human, right? So let's just be there for each other. Let's create those ripples. Let's hold out that hand and be like, I'll sit next to you. I'll drink hot chocolate with you.
Yeah.
Any day. Absolutely. Right?
Yes, most definitely. So Bobbie Jo, your story it's amazing. And I know that there are going to be women who are listening who are like, not only want some hot chocolate, but they want to connect with you and be in your space and want to learn how they can heal themselves. How can they reach you?
Me personally, I do have a website, and it's bravelyauthenticliving.com. Just all together, Bravely Authentic Living. And I have started Bravely Authentic LLC. Now it's a registered private practice. So I'm really excited about that. That was a huge milestone for visibility for me and sharing my story publicly. So you can go on there and you can book a one-on-one session. You can look at, I do some in-person events locally and in the surrounding areas. I do travel a little bit where I'll do intuitive readings and guidance, and really just getting me out there to do one-on-one healings with people as they're sitting down and asking their questions. And I attract people that are ready to clear some trauma. I attract people that I've had readings where they didn't say a word. I was getting the information and they were just nodding and tears streaming. I have tissues now, tears streaming down their face. They knew exactly what I was tapping into. I didn't need to know the details. I could feel the trauma energy there, and just helping them work through that. There's times where I'll stop space and hold space for you and just say, hey, you know what? Let's run the heart of creation. Let me teach you so your subconscious mind can hear the words and you can feel what it's like to be in your heart space and to make your connections above and below and with your higher self, and surround yourself with your own healing space. And that way you can literally just have that intention. I want to drop into my heart space, and your subconscious mind knows exactly where you're going, and just keep doing it and just keep doing it until, you don't need to know all the words. You don't need to, you can just feel it. Right. So I offer that. And I do live streams on my Facebook group, Bravely Authentic. I have a Facebook group, Bravely Authentic Conversations, actually is the Facebook group. And I do live streams. I run the Heart of Creation, so you're welcome to come. I just did a From Trauma to True Love series. It ran from June 1st throughout the week. And I did a speaking event. And then I needed to actually take a few days to recharge. And we were going through the eclipse energy and all that. So I needed to let the people that were a part of that recharge. So you can follow me on there and kind of get into the group energy. And then I have just announced a launch for a program called Transform Your Life with Love. And it's literally bringing people from trauma to true love is the masterclass of the week-long, kind of showing you how this larger year-long program is going to be run. We make the connection. We do a lot of releasing. We do a lot of renewal, intention to bringing in the healing. And then we also are creating spaces. You have your breakthrough sessions, but then you also have the sessions where you have time to process the information you need that week, or you need that, however long it takes, whatever's coming up. And I combine the sacred soul alignments and the sacred light modalities with my social work, with the NLP work, and I'm just creating these beautiful healing programs. And then I just keep bringing more people into my space like you, that are just part of this new support system. And I wanted to bring attention to that, because as you heal in all these relationships or all these jobs, all these friends, family members that you're afraid of losing when you're up leveling or when you're in this healing journey, people that aren't going to come with you, when you're at the point of where I'm at now, all the people that you're going to be surrounded with, all the people that you're going to attract in, it's the most amazing supportive space to be in. So I just encourage you to take that leap and just ask for those people to come in, ask for your new friends, your new family, your new relationships, because they're coming in. They're coming in from everywhere. I don't even, as I said, like, I don't even know where I've met half of the people that I'm friends with now, and I wouldn't trade them for the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I'm glad to call you my friend, Bobbie Jo, and
absolutely
so honored that you have been so incredibly vulnerable. Renee Brown needs to have you on her podcast.
That's my bucket list. That's like my bucket dream list. I'm not kidding.
We're calling her in because she's also one of my greatest people. I've talked about vulnerability myself. I've done other podcasts about vulnerability and have taught it in the corporate world as well. And you are reaching those who are going to hear this. And you're going to have made that difference by simply showing your light and being vulnerable and sharing it. Is you are saving other lives, and you are creating that ripple effect that is healing the world. And as we all heal together on this journey, like you said, we are all attracting in those that we need in our life. And so if somebody's listening to this, they will know there was a reason why they played this particular podcast. So thank you for honoring me, Bobbie Jo.
Oh, thank you for having me. Like I'm literally, I was looking forward to this so much. I could just feel the energy coming in, and it's easy, right? To be vulnerable in a space, but when you sit down and you're vulnerable with yourself, it's the scariest but most exciting place to be. And so I encourage everyone listening, just take that moment to be vulnerable with yourself. And if you can, be vulnerable with others, because someone needs to hear your story. Someone needs to be inspired by you. Someone needs to start their healing journey like you did. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.